Hello, my Kinder and First leaders. Welcome to October week number 2. This week we are wrapping up the Joseph story. So we left off the Joseph story where he was kind of just in trouble, right? He was in jail and he had already been sold and his brothers to slavery. He had already been taken to Egypt, away from his family. He had already kind of started to rise up in the ranks and then just got shot right back down, right? And so this is the story of what happens next, right? Because God is working on a bigger story. And all of this is to go back to our bottom line and memory verse for the day. So hold on, because God is working on a bigger story is going to be your bottom line. And for this month, we're talking about let us not become tired of doing good, because at the right time, we will gather a crop if we don't give up, Galatians 6:9. And then grit, refusing to give up when life gets hard. So it's just all about keep going and keep looking at whatever God is working on instead of focusing too much on the exact situation, right? All of that to say, the first activity, we're just going to connect with the kids, right? And so we're working on the different ways that we can really have a successful small group, and that's connecting, studying, and praying. Connecting, studying, and praying. And so that's what I'm going to keep pushing to you guys, is just as long as we're connecting, studying, and praying, then we're doing all right? And so this first one is just a connection, right? And really kind of getting them introduced to the idea of working on a bigger picture. And so they have a puzzle, okay? So this puzzle, have them work together. See if they can figure out what the puzzle is without looking at the box or anything. And before they can even know what it is, have them guess, like, what is this puzzle that you're working on? Do you have any idea? And then see if they can kind of, hint at it or get it or anything like that. Then this next one, go ahead and have everyone kind of gather around and squat down, okay? And with this, you are going to start a sequence of something. And when you start this sequence, their goal is to guess what's next in the sequence. So for instance, if we're doing the ABCs, right? I can say like A, B, C, and then stop, and then one of the kids should, you can point to one of them, maybe they can sit up at that moment and say the next letter, and then keep going in the sequence, okay? You can do like 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, and then wait for, that next one or whatever. And Mary had a little lamb or something like that, and kind of see if they can guess what is next in that sequence or that series, okay? Now this is about, figuring out what's next, right? There are times when we don't know what's next, and that's when we're going to be talking about in the small group story today. Just like Joseph did not know what was happening next, he knew and trusted, or at least he figured out that God was working on a bigger story, right? And so that's what we're learning from this Bible story today, is that God's working on something bigger, okay? We just need to focus on what we can do today to help him out with that story, or to be in God's promises, anything like that. And so all of that is wrapping back to, we don't always know what's next, but God does. God always knows what's next in that sequence. Okay, this next one is going to be your prayer. Now it says pray and dismiss on the top, ignore the dismiss part, but this one is just your prayer activity. So we do focus a lot on prayer, and I want you guys to focus a lot on prayer. And so if you want, do this one even right after a large group, right? And so go through what it is like to kind of focus in on that bigger story and what's happening and what God's doing. No matter what happens, we have to just remember, and then they can even say that bottom line together, hold on, because God's working on that bigger story, right? And so definitely pray together as a small group. Now this next one, we're talking a little bit more into grit and what that's all about, okay? And so you're going to be making a Play-Doh recipe, okay? And with this Play-Doh recipe, make sure that they're, being careful not to make it too messy or anything like that. But as they're putting in these ingredients together, they may know what they're making and they may not. I'm not really sure, okay? But as you start to help them with mixing the ingredients and making it all together and stuff, split up into a couple groups and do this. But all of that to say, some of them will figure it out. And that's good, because that ends up being a driving factor for them to keep going, because it gets hard on making this Play-Doh and stuff sometimes, and the different instructions. And so look at the instruction sheet and go along with that to make it happen, okay? Awesome. And kind of focus on, hey, like you guys kept going. You guys had grit because you knew what was going to happen, right? Like you knew that there was going to be a good outcome and something that we could play with when we were done, right? We don't always know what's going to happen, but we know that God is working on that bigger plan. Okay. And then what we're going to do is you're going to break down the story, okay? When you break down the story, this is after video 3, we're going to break down the story. And with this story, we have different, you'll have pieces of paper, okay? And you'll have some clipboards as well. What you want them to do is actually put the paper on the clipboard, and then they draw their favorite part of the story that they heard, the Joseph story, upside down. And the key is to do it upside down, right? And so they can like be laying on the carpets or whatever and drawing that picture upside down. And then they can share with each other what all of that was about. Now the upside down part comes in where we're like, sometimes God just flips it upside down, where we thought it was a bad thing. We thought something bad was happening in our life, just like in the Joseph story, but then God flipped it upside down and used it for good, just like he did in Joseph's story, okay? So that's why we're having them go upside down for that one, okay? That'll be a really fun one for you guys to do. Now this next one is a ball passing activity with the memory verse, okay? And so what they're gonna do is line up in a circle where everyone is kind of facing the back of someone else, but it's in like a circle format so they can keep it going to infinity, right? And when they do, they'll have a ball to start off, and they're going to recite one word of the verse every time that they pass the ball, okay? So you can just do overhand, you can do over and under the legs, you can then go backwards and go over and under the legs again, whatever that looks like, right? Okay, so, but basically they are doing that and reciting the memory verse at the same time. Let us not become tired of doing good, and go all the way through that Galatians 6:9 verse. And that's it for this week, guys. Thank you guys so much for all that you guys do. Keep playing that last game too, even until parents pick up. That would be a fun one. And we will see you guys soon.